Numbers never lie. That's what my father taught me during long evenings at our kitchen table, as he helped me with my math homework. People can hide the truth in fancy words, he'd say, but numbers always tell the real story. I never imagined how crucial that lesson would become when I married into the Wellington family and their billion-dollar empire. My name is Julia Chen, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Wellington Industries, or at least I was until yesterday's board meeting. The story of how I uncovered one of the largest corporate frauds in recent history begins 3 years ago, when I first joined the company. I'd earned my MBA from Stanford and worked at one of the Big Four accounting firms before meeting Michael Wellington at a charity gala. He was different from his family, kind, genuine, more interested in environmental conservation than corporate politics. We fell in love, married within a year, and that's when his father, CEO Richard Wellington, made an unexpected offer. "We need new blood in the company," he'd said during a family dinner at their mansion in Greenwich. "Someone with fresh perspectives." He smiled at me across the crystal and silver. "How would you like to be our new CFO?" Looking back, I should have seen the trap. But I was 32, ambitious, and naive enough to believe that merit mattered more than family politics. The warning signs appeared almost immediately. During my first week, I requested access to the company's complete financial records. Richard's brother, James Wellington, who served as COO, laughed it off. "Don't worry your pretty head about the complex stuff," he said, patting my shoulder condescendingly. "Just focus on the regular reporting. We handle the special accounts." But I did worry, and I did investigate. At first glance, Wellington Industries books looked impeccable. The company, which manufactured high-tech medical equipment, showed steady growth and healthy profits. Yet something felt off about the numbers. Late at night, after everyone had left the office, I started digging deeper. Small discrepancies in international shipping manifests, inventory numbers that didn't quite match between systems, wire transfers to offshore accounts that were just under reporting thresholds. "You're working too hard," Michael would say when I came home late again. "Dad says you're being too detail-oriented. It's not good for the family dynamic." The family dynamic. Everything in the Wellington world revolved around maintaining appearances. Sunday dinners at the mansion, charity galas, country club memberships. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, was the queen of this carefully curated world. "Darling," she'd say, sipping her perpetual glass of Chardonnay, "you simply must learn to relax. Let the men handle the difficult decisions. That's how we've always done things." But I couldn't relax. The discrepancies kept adding up. Using my background in forensic accounting, I began building a shadow database, tracking every suspicious transaction, every questionable entry. I hired a trusted aid specialist, Tom Martinez, to help me create secure backups of everything I found. "This is serious," Tom whispered one night, showing me what he'd discovered in the encrypted server logs. "They're running a parallel accounting system. The numbers we see? They're just the surface. The real story, buried beneath layers of shell companies and clever accounting tricks, was staggering. Over $50 million had been systematically siphoned from the company over the past 5 years. The money moved through a complex network of offshore accounts, eventually ending up in private holdings controlled by Richard, James, and several board members. But the fraud went beyond simple embezzlement. They were also falsifying safety test results for their medical equipment, cutting corners on quality control while pocketing the difference. People's lives were at risk. I documented everything meticulously, building an airtight case. The hard part was deciding what to do with it. Michael, though not involved in the fraud, was caught in the middle. "They're still family," he said when I tried to hint at what I found. "Whatever you think they're doing, I'm sure there's an explanation." Yesterday morning, I finally understood why Richard had hired me. The board meeting was supposed to be routine, quarterly results, project updates, the usual. But Richard had other plans. "Before we continue," he announced, "we need to address a serious concern. Our CFO, while technically competent, lacks the vision and understanding needed for a company of our stature." James nodded solemnly. "She's too focused on minor details, questioning established practices. It's disrupting our operations." Therefore, Richard continued, looking at me with false regret, "we'll be bringing in someone more experienced, someone who understands how things work in the real world." The board members, all old friends of the family, murmured in agreement. I sat there, feeling their smugness, their certainty that I was just another naive outsider who didn't understand their sophisticated financial arrangements. "Do you have anything to say?" Richard asked, expecting me to plead or protest. I smiled, gathered my things, and stood up. "Only that you should keep your morning calendar clear tomorrow. You'll be having some unexpected visitors." "Is that a threat?" James laughed. "Listen to her, trying to play in the big leagues." Richard waved dismissively. "Security will escort you out. And Julia, remember your non-disclosure agreement. We wouldn't want any unfortunate legal situations." I walked out quietly, hearing their laughter behind me. In my office, I sent one final email, the culmination of 3 years of investigation sent to the SEC, FBI, and Department of Justice. Then I deleted my computer's hard drive, knowing that all the evidence was safely backed up on servers they couldn't access. That evening, Michael found me in our home office, calmly working on my laptop. "Dad called," he said. "What happened at the board meeting?" I looked at my husband, seeing the conflict in his eyes. "Your father made his choice 3 years ago," I said softly. "Tomorrow, you'll have to live with it." "What do you mean?" But I just turned back to my work. In a few hours, federal agents would receive my detailed report, complete with transaction records, test falsification evidence, and a complete map of the Wellington family's fraudulent empire. The next morning dawned clear and cold. I arrived at Wellington Industries headquarters at precisely 8:30 a.m., dressed in my best suit. The security guards, not yet informed of my termination, let me in with their usual nods. I settled into my office and waited. At 9:15, right on schedule, all hell broke loose. The FBI arrived first, a dozen agents in dark suits, led by Special Agent Sarah Martinez. The SEC investigators followed minutes later. I watched through my office window as they strode into the lobby, badges displayed, heading straight for the executive floor. Richard Wellington's outraged voice echoed down the hallway. "This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am?" "Yes, Mr. Wellington," Agent Martinez replied calmly. "We know exactly who you are and what you've been doing." I stepped out of my office just as James Wellington tried to run for the emergency stairs. 2 agents intercepted him smoothly. Behind him, his assistant was frantically shredding documents, not that it would help. I had copies of everything. "You," Richard spotted me, his face turned purple with rage. "What have you done?" "My job," I replied quietly. "I'm the CFO, remember? I follow the numbers." The next few hours were carefully choreographed chaos. Agents seized computers and files. Board members were escorted to separate conference rooms for questioning. The company's servers were locked down, though I'd already ensured the important evidence was safely backed up off-site. Tom Martinez, my IT specialist, arrived with federal cybercrime experts. "The parallel accounting system is exactly where you documented," he reported. "They can't delete anything now." Around noon, Michael appeared in my office doorway. He looked shell-shocked, his world crumbling around him. "Did you know?" he asked. "All this time." "I knew something was wrong the first month," I said gently. "It took 3 years to prove it. Your father wasn't just stealing money, Michael. They were falsifying safety tests on medical equipment. People could have died." He sank into a chair. "The charitable foundation, the hospital wing they funded." "Money laundering," I confirmed. "Clean profits mixed with dirty money, cycled through offshore accounts and back into legitimate-looking investments." "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me over your father?" The look in his eyes answered my question. By evening, the story had broken. Wellington Industries executives arrested in $50 million fraud scheme ran across every major news network. The company's stock was temporarily suspended from trading. Employees gathered in shocked groups, watching their prestigious company's name dragged through the mud. I spent hours with federal prosecutors, walking them through the evidence. The case was airtight, every transaction documented, every false test result preserved, every illegal transfer tracked to its source. "This is extraordinary work," Agent Martinez said, reviewing my files. 3 years of careful investigation, and they never suspected. I smiled slightly. They saw what they expected to see, a naive daughter-in-law playing at business. Their prejudice was their weakness. The fallout was swift and severe. Richard, James, and 6 board members were indicted on multiple federal charges. The company's stock plummeted when trading resumed. Clients began canceling contracts, fearful of the compromised medical equipment. But I had planned for this too. 1 week after the arrests, I presented a restructuring plan to the remaining board members and major shareholders. A complete audit of all products, transparent safety testing, new quality control procedures. I had already contacted reputable manufacturers who could verify and, if necessary, replace any compromised equipment. The company can survive this, I told them, but only with complete transparency and a total change in culture. To my surprise, they listened. Perhaps the sight of Richard and James being led away in handcuffs had focused their minds wonderfully. Michael struggled with the revelations. His father's betrayal, his family's disgrace, his own unwitting role in it all. It was a lot to process. We separated for a few months while he worked through his feelings. I should have trusted you, he said when he finally came home. Should have seen what was happening. They were your family, I replied. We see what we want to see in the people we love. The criminal trials lasted 18 months. Richard and James were sentenced to 15 years each. The board members received lesser sentences in exchange for cooperation. Eleanor Wellington retreated to a sister's house in Europe, her social position in ruins. Wellington Industries survived, though changed. I was appointed CEO by the Reform Board, with a mandate to rebuild the company's reputation. We rehired laid-off workers, implemented stringent quality controls, and slowly regained our clients' trust. The hardest part was facing the families of patients who had received potentially compromised equipment. I insisted on meeting them personally, explaining what had happened and how we were making it right. Last month, I gave a guest lecture at Stanford Business School. The topic? Corporate ethics and the courage to see. The students were particularly interested in how I'd maintained my cover for 3 years while building the case. Numbers tell stories, I told them, remembering my father's lessons at our kitchen table. But you have to be willing to listen, even when the story isn't what you want to hear. Michael and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. He left the company to pursue his original passion for environmental conservation, founding a successful nonprofit. We agreed that some distances, like separate careers, can actually strengthen bonds. Yesterday, I received a letter from Richard Wellington in prison. You destroyed everything we built, he wrote. Our reputation, our legacy, our family name. I didn't reply. He still doesn't understand that he destroyed those things himself, long before I exposed the truth. My job was simply to ensure that the numbers finally told their story. The Wellington mansion was sold to cover legal settlements. I heard Eleanor sometimes drives past it, remembering her glory days. The country club found convenient reasons to revoke their membership. The charity galas now celebrate new heroes. But in my office, now on the top floor, I keep a small reminder. A framed copy of my original hiring letter as CFO, signed by Richard Wellington himself. It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest mistakes people make come from underestimating those they look down upon. The company's new mission statement is carved in a lobby wall. Integrity in innovation, truth in numbers. Every morning when I walk past it, I think about choices, the ones the Wellingtons made, and the ones I made in response. Tom Martinez is now our Chief Technology Officer, leading a department dedicated to transparent reporting and security. The offshore accounts are closed, their contents restored to the company and its victims. The parallel accounting system exists only in evidence archives. And me? I still stay late sometimes, reviewing reports, checking numbers. Old habits die hard. But now I'm protecting something worth protecting. A company that saves lives honestly, that values truth over appearance. Last week, a young analyst came to me with concerns about some unusual transactions. I listened carefully, remembered another woman who once spotted irregularities, and gave her the support I wish I had at the start. Because sometimes the most important numbers aren't on balance sheets, they're the ones that measure.